December 26, 1944. 4:50 p.m. The phone rang in Eisenhower's command room at Versailles. His aide answered, listened for 3 seconds, then turned white as snow. "Sir, it's General Patton. He says it's urgent." Eisenhower grabbed the receiver, hand trembling despite every effort to control it. "George, Ike, we're through. 4th Armored made contact with the 101st at 1650 hours. The corridor is narrow, but it's open." Bastogne is relieved. For 5 full seconds, the Supreme Commander of Allied forces couldn't speak. His knuckles turned white, gripping the phone. Staff officers watched their commander's face transform, decades of tension melting away in a single breath. "George, say that again. We're through to Bastogne. The Screaming Eagles are safe. Battered to hell, but they held." "We got there in time," Eisenhower's voice cracked. Witnesses would later swear they saw tears. "George, thank God. Thank you. You did it. You saved them." For hours, that's all they had left. For more hours, and 10,000 American paratroopers would have been wiped from existence, not captured, not forced to surrender, annihilated. And in that moment, Eisenhower realized something that would haunt and comfort him for the rest of his life. George S. Patton had just accomplished the militarily impossible. He'd moved an entire army 90 degrees through a blizzard, across frozen hell, and smashed through German lines in 4 days. Nobody else could have done it. Nobody else would have even tried. This is what Eisenhower said when Patton saved the 101st Airborne, and this is why those words defined both men forever. December 19, 1944. Supreme Headquarters, Allied Expeditionary Force. The Situation Room was silent, except for the sound of bad news being delivered in grim, measured tones. German forces had punched a 50-mile bulge through American lines in the Ardennes. Chaos reigned across the entire front. But the worst report concerned a small Belgian town nobody had heard of a week earlier. Bastogne, the 101st Airborne Division, along with scattered remnants of other units, was surrounded. Over 10,000 American soldiers trapped in a frozen pocket. German forces outnumbered them 3-1. Artillery pounded their positions day and night. Ammunition was being rationed to 10 rounds per rifle. Worse, the weather had grounded every Allied aircraft. No air support, no resupply drops, no reconnaissance. The paratroopers were completely isolated. Eisenhower stood before the tactical map, his face drawn and exhausted. He hadn't slept more than 3 hours a night since the German offensive began. Dark circles ringed his eyes. His hands, normally steady, trembled slightly as he traced the bulge with his finger. "How long can they hold?" he asked quietly. The intelligence officer hesitated. Nobody wanted to say it. "Sir, realistically, 4 to 5 days. Maybe a week if they're lucky. After that, they'll be out of ammunition. The Germans will overrun them." Eisenhower's jaw clenched so tight his teeth ached. Losing an entire airborne division would be catastrophic. These weren't just soldiers, they were America's elite. The men who jumped into Normandy on D-Day, who fought through Operation Market Garden, who'd earned legendary status across every battlefield in Europe. If they were annihilated at Bastogne, the psychological impact would shatter Allied morale. "What are our options for relief?" Eisenhower demanded. His staff outlined the brutal reality. British forces under Montgomery were containing the northern shoulder, but couldn't attack south quickly enough. Other American units were engaged in desperate defensive battles. Nobody had the strength or position to launch an immediate counterattack. Nobody except 3rd Army, currently fighting 100 miles south in the Saar region. That meant Patton. It always came back to Patton. Eisenhower had spent 3 years managing George S. Patton's brilliance, ego, controversies, and insubordination. The man was exhausting, a political nightmare. But staring at that map at 10,000 surrounded Americans, Eisenhower realized something uncomfortable. Patton might be the only general in Europe capable of pulling off what needed to be done. "Get me Patton," Eisenhower said quietly. "Tell him we need him at Verdun tomorrow for an emergency conference. Tell him to bring plans for offensive operations. He'll know what that means." After his staff left, Eisenhower stood alone in the Situation Room. His aide, Harry Butcher, later recorded what he witnessed. Eisenhower whispered to himself, staring at Bastogne on the map. "George, for once in this goddamn war, do exactly what I need you to do. Those paratroopers are counting on you. America is counting on you. I'm counting on you." He paused, then added one more line. "Don't let me down." December 19, 1944. The Verdun Conference. The meeting has become legendary in military history. But what's often overlooked is Eisenhower's reaction. His words, the weight of the decision he made that day. The atmosphere in the headquarters was tense, electric. Eisenhower opened by trying to maintain confidence. The present situation is to be regarded as one of opportunity for us, not of disaster. Nobody believed him. This was the worst crisis the Allies had faced since D-Day. Everyone in that room knew it. Eisenhower turned to his assembled generals. His voice dropped, deadly serious. I want you to think about this. Really think before you answer. How quickly can we mount a relief operation to reach Bastogne? Most generals began calculating logistics, supply lines, troop availability, winter conditions, German resistance. The math didn't look good. Then Patton spoke up. I can attack on the 22nd with 3 divisions. Silence crashed through the room like a physical force. Other generals exchanged glances. Was Patton serious? Or was this another example of his legendary ego and exaggeration? To disengage from active combat, rotate 90 degrees, move over 100 miles through winter conditions, and launch a coordinated 3-division attack in 72 hours was beyond anything attempted in modern warfare. Military textbooks said it would take weeks to plan, let alone execute. Eisenhower's eyes locked onto Patton. His response, recorded by multiple witnesses, was measured and deadly serious. George, I'm not asking for optimism. I'm not asking for what might be theoretically possible. I'm asking what you can actually genuinely accomplish. He leaned forward. The lives of 10,000 American soldiers depend on your answer. The men of the 101st Airborne are surrounded, outnumbered, running out of everything. If you say you'll be there, and you're not, they die. All of them. The room was silent enough to hear breathing. So, I'll ask again. Can you attack on December 22nd? Patton didn't hesitate. Not for a second. I've already got 3 plans prepared. My staff anticipated this meeting. We've wargamed the contingencies. On December 22nd, my 4th Armored Division will attack north toward Bastogne. He paused, then delivered the line that changed everything. This isn't a promise, it's a fact. Eisenhower studied Patton's face, searching for the usual bravado, the exaggeration, the showmanship. Instead, he saw cold, absolute certainty. Patton had actually prepared for this before the meeting. That level of foresight impressed even Eisenhower. All right, George, you've got your mission. Relieve Bastogne. You have operational freedom to execute as you see fit. Eisenhower leaned forward, his voice dropping to a tone his staff rarely heard. Quiet, lethal, final. But understand this. If you fail, if those paratroopers are lost because you couldn't deliver what you promised, I will personally see that you never command troops again. Not just relief from Third Army, end of career. Court-martial, if necessary. He paused. Am I perfectly clear? Crystal clear, sir, Patton replied without flinching. I won't fail. After the meeting, Eisenhower pulled aside his chief of staff, General Walter Bedell Smith. Smith's diary records the conversation. The boss asked me if I thought George could actually do it. I said it seemed impossible. Ike looked at the map for a long moment, then said something I'll never forget. That's why I'm sending Patton. Impossible is what he does. December 20th through 25th. 1944. The longest week of Eisenhower's life, while Patton's Third Army executed its pivot north. Eisenhower endured 6 days of agony. Every few hours, situation reports arrived from Bastogne, each one grimmer than the last. December 21st. German artillery pounding American positions continuously. Casualties mounting. Medical supplies nearly exhausted. Wounded, dying in freezing cellars because there was nowhere else to put them. Then came the moment that would define the siege. German commanders sent a surrender ultimatum to the 101st. General Anthony McAuliffe, the acting division commander, sent back a one-word reply: nuts. When Eisenhower read the report, he allowed himself a brief smile. At least their spirit isn't broken, he told his staff. But privately, he knew spirit wouldn't stop German tanks. December 22nd, Patton's forces attacked as promised. Right on schedule, Eisenhower felt a surge of hope. Then the next reports came in. Progress was slow, brutal. German resistance was ferocious. Winter conditions made every mile a nightmare. At the current pace, they might not reach Bastogne in time. Inside Bastogne, the situation was catastrophic. Ammunition critical. Some rifle companies down to 5 rounds per man. Artillery shells nearly depleted. Hand-to-hand fighting in the streets, Eisenhower sent a message to McAuliffe. Hold at all costs. Relief is coming. But in his diary, he wrote something different. I gave George the green light because I had no choice. Now I'm watching the clock, watching the maps, and praying he reaches Bastogne before it's too late. Every hour that passes, more paratroopers die. If George doesn't break through, their blood is on my hands for trusting him. December 23rd, weather cleared enough for air resupply. C-47 transports dropped ammunition, medical supplies, and food to Bastogne. It bought time, but not much. German attacks intensified. The perimeter was shrinking. Some positions were overrun. Hitler had personally ordered Bastogne's capture at any cost. Eisenhower sent an urgent message to Patton. George, I need maximum effort. The 101st can't hold much longer. Whatever you're doing, do it faster. December 24th, Christmas Eve, Eisenhower spent the evening in his office, unable to rest. Staff officers noted he looked 10 years older than a week ago. The weight of command was crushing him. Reports showed Third Army still fighting toward Bastogne, still miles away. At the current pace, they might not arrive in time. Eisenhower began composing condolence letters, messages to families of the 101st Airborne, letters he would send if the paratroopers were lost. He wrote to McAuliffe's wife. To the division chaplain's family, to the families of men he'd personally spoken with before they deployed. His aide found him late that night, surrounded by unfinished letters. Eisenhower looked up, exhausted beyond measure. I hope I don't have to send these, he whispered. December 25th, Christmas Day, still no breakthrough. Eisenhower attended chapel service, but couldn't focus. He kept checking messages every 15 minutes. Nothing. The 101st was still surrounded. Third Army, still fighting. Time running out. Hope fading. December 26, 1944. 4:50 p.m., the phone rang. We're through to Bastogne. After hanging up, Eisenhower stood motionless. Then he turned to his staff. Witnesses recorded what happened next. His eyes were wet. Tears he didn't bother hiding. Gentlemen, General Patton has just accomplished something I will remember for the rest of my life. He saved 10,000 American soldiers who were ours, maybe minutes, from annihilation. He did what I asked him to do, when I asked him to do it, against odds everyone said were impossible. He paused, composing himself. George S. Patton is the most difficult subordinate I have ever commanded. He is also, without question, one of the finest battlefield commanders America has ever produced. Eisenhower immediately drafted messages, official congratulations to the 101st, commendations to Third Army, reports to the War Department. But he also sent a personal telegram to Patton. George, words cannot adequately express my gratitude and admiration for what Third Army accomplished. You gave your word you would be there. You kept that word. In doing so, you saved not just 10,000 soldiers, but possibly the entire Ardennes campaign. Well done does not begin to cover it. This operation will be studied for generations as an example of operational excellence. I am proud to have you under my command, Ike. That evening, Eisenhower's aide found him alone, staring at the map showing the narrow corridor to Bastogne. For more hours, Eisenhower said quietly, that's all George had. For more hours, and the 101st would have been overrun. He made it with 4 hours to spare. He traced the route with his finger. 4 hours between salvation and annihilation. In the days and years following Bastogne, Eisenhower's words about Patton evolved from immediate gratitude to historical assessment. December 27, 1944, Eisenhower's official statement was measured and formal. The relief of Bastogne by elements of Lieutenant General Patton's Third Army represents one of the outstanding achievements of this war. The speed and coordination displayed demonstrates the highest levels of operational art. But to General Marshall, Army Chief of Staff, Eisenhower was brutally candid. George Patton just saved my command. If Bastogne had fallen with an entire airborne division lost, the psychological impact would have been catastrophic. Questions would have been raised about Allied strategy, American military competence, and my leadership. Patton prevented that disaster. Whatever frustrations I've had with him, and they are many, this operation justifies every difficult decision I've made to keep him in command. In his personal diary, Eisenhower revealed the emotional weight. I have spent years managing George Patton's ego, controversies, and insubordination. There have been times I wanted to fire him, times I've questioned whether he was worth the trouble. Bastogne answered that question definitively. He is worth every frustration, every headache, every moment of anger. Because when it mattered most, when 10,000 American soldiers faced annihilation, George delivered. Not eventually, not with excuses. He delivered exactly when and how he promised. That's the definition of a great commander. To Patton himself, Eisenhower sent a follow-up message on January 2, 1945. George, I've had time to reflect on Bastogne. What you accomplished goes beyond tactical brilliance. You gave those paratroopers hope when they had none. You proved American forces could execute complex operations under impossible conditions. You changed how Germans view American military capability. Most importantly, you saved lives, not theoretically, but literally. Every man of the 101st who came home to his family after the war owes that to your speed and aggression. That's a legacy worth more than all the medals and promotions in the Army. I wanted you to know that. Years later, in his memoir Crusade in Europe, Eisenhower devoted significant space to Bastogne. General Patton's relief operation stands as one of the war's pivotal moments. The rapid movement of 3 divisions, the coordination required, and the aggressive execution under terrible conditions showcased American military excellence. History will debate many aspects of the war, but Bastogne's relief is beyond debate. It was operational genius. In a 1964 interview, 2 years before his death, Eisenhower was asked about his most difficult command decisions. His response came without hesitation. Trusting George Patton to relieve Bastogne was agonizing. I was betting everything, the lives of 10,000 paratroopers, the stability of our entire position, on a general who had proven difficult to manage. But I also knew George was the only one who could do it. When he succeeded, when those paratroopers were saved, I felt relief and gratitude beyond anything I can describe. He paused, lost in memory. That phone call, "We're through to Bastogne." Those 4 words might be the most important 4 words I heard during the entire war. The ultimate testament came in, Eisenhower's final assessment, written in 1965. History will remember many generals from World War II, but few will be remembered for saving an entire division from annihilation through pure operational brilliance. That was George S. Patton at Bastogne. Whatever else he was difficult, controversial, flawed, he was also the man who refused to accept that those paratroopers were doomed. He promised he would save them, and he did. The relief of Bastogne wasn't just a military operation. It was the moment Eisenhower realized that genius, however difficult to manage, was worth every frustration when it delivered miracles. For hours, that's the margin between disaster and triumph. Between 10,000 men coming home and 10,000 families receiving telegrams, George S. Patton gave Eisenhower those for hours, and Eisenhower never forgot it. If this deep dive into one of World War II's most dramatic moments fascinated you, then you need to subscribe to this channel immediately. We bring you the untold stories, the private words, and the human drama behind history's greatest battles. These aren't just dates and facts, these are the moments that defined nations and the words that reveal the souls of legends. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our next video. Drop a comment about leadership under impossible pressure. Share this with anyone who needs to hear what's possible when someone refuses to accept defeat. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the most difficult people achieve the most extraordinary things.